Once upon a time, in a village near some woods, there lived a young girl whose name was Mary, and who was very fond of playing with a ball. She played with it every day in the street or down by the river, but she lost it one day and despaired of ever seeing it again. "What shall I do?" she cried to herself. "I have no more playthings now, and I am dreadfully lonely. Oh, if only I could live in a forest deep far from all the world and human strife, where trees are tall and flowers sweet and fragrant grow in plenty, and rabbits soft and white hop through the green grass at my feet." But Mary was a good child and obedient to her parents, and though she sighed for the woods, she knew that it would not be right to run away. So she did the next best thing. Every day she slipped through the trees to the edge of the wood and spent her whole time there. It was not so lonely when she could hear the chatter of children at play, or the ring of a hammer from the smithy, or the bleating of sheep from the pastures. One day, however, she heard the trampling of horses and the clash of arms, and looking through the trees, she saw a long line of soldiers passing by, and they were singing a merry tune, and they beckoned to her to follow them. So without a word to anyone, Mary ran after them, and soon she was far from home. All day she followed the soldiers, and when evening began to fall, she asked them where she might find lodging for the night. They laughed merrily and told her to come and camp with them, so she slept soundly wrapped in blankets while the soldiers kept guard. In the morning, they told her they were going to visit a neighboring king, and they asked her if she wished to accompany them. "Oh, yes," she replied. "I love to travel. Please let me stay with you." So they marched together to the castle of the neighboring king, where Mary saw many wonders that she had never dreamed of. But as soon as the king saw her, he called his counselors and said, "What shall we do with this child who has wandered away from home?" "She cannot stay here, sire," said one of the counselors, "for she will bring nothing but trouble. You must send her back at once." So they took her to a tower high and lonely and shut her in. "Oh, woe is me," she cried. "If I had listened to my heart, I should have stayed at home. What will my mother say when she finds I am gone?" And as she sat in the tower, she heard a voice that seemed to come from heaven. "Fear not, Mary, for you shall not stay here long. In 3 days from now, you shall be safe at home." So the 3 days passed, and on the morrow, as the sun rose, Mary cried, "Thank you, kind spirit, for keeping watch over me. But I am impatient to be home again. Take me now, I pray, and place me where my mother can find me." And the spirit said, "As you wish." And in an instant, she was by a river not far from her own home. And there she saw the lovely clothes that she had been given in the castle, all piled up beside her. But as she picked them up, she knew that they were meant for someone else, for they were not hers. And she wept, thinking of the poor lady who would now go to the king in garments unfit for a princess to wear. Then the spirit spoke again and said, "Mary, you are always thinking of others. For that, I shall grant you a boon. Ask, and you shall receive." Then Mary knew that this was a chance to set things right. So she said, "O spirit of the mountain, I beg of you, take these clothes and return them to the princess from whom they were taken." Then the spirit waved its magic wand, and Mary heard a shout of joy from the princess, and she knew that her friend was happy once again. And when the spirit turned to Mary, she saw that she was dressed in simple garments, but beautiful and pure, like snow. And the spirit touched her hand and said, "From this day forward, you shall wear no other clothes but such as these." And so it was. But Mary went home and told her mother of her adventures. And her mother, when she heard of the princess's plight, said, "My dear child, you have shown yourself to be the kindest and gentlest of hearts. You deserve a gift to match." So she took a ring from her own finger and gave it to Mary. And it was a ring of purest gold, and rubies blazed from its face. Now when the princess was brought before the king, she wore the ring, and the king, who was a miser, saw the jewels and cried, "This is a worthy gift for a princess. Give it to me, I say." But the princess said, "No, My ring you shall not have, even if you take my life." When the king heard that, he was wroth, but he could not take the ring against the princess's will, and so he let her go, and she fled to the forest and lived in a cottage far from men. After a while, the king married another, and he gave the princess's old garments to a beggar woman who lived at the edge of the wood, and the beggar woman sold them to a peddler. And when the peddler came to Mary's house, she bought them for her mother. So Mary was overjoyed when she saw her mother wearing her own scarlet cloak once more. And she ran to the window to call the peddler in. And as she stood there, who should pass by but the king? And when he saw Mary, he was stricken with love at her beauty. And though she was but a pauper, he married her, and she became the fairest queen in all the land. And they lived in a castle by the wood, and the king kept watch over the princess, and Mary visited her often, and the two were the best of friends. And so they lived long and happily ever after. Once upon a time, deep in the heart of a great forest, there lived a man whose name was John, and who was renowned for his skill in healing. Everyone for miles around sought him out whenever they were sick or sore, for John was gifted with the powers of healing herbs and roots and charms and spells. And one summer day, a young prince rode into the forest to hunt wild boars with his 5 bravest knights. And after a while, one of the knights fell to the ground and cried, "Good sir, I am hurt and fear I may die." "Fear not," said the prince. "I know a man nearby who can heal any wound. Come, we will take you to him." When they reached John's cottage, they knocked on the door, and John came out and welcomed them in. The prince explained his knight's wound, and John said, "Bring him in, and I will tend to him." But when they had set the knight on a bed, John went to the window and scratched his chin thoughtfully. "Fetch me," he said, "a new pot and some water from the spring." And when these were brought to him, he chopped some fresh mint and threw it into the pot, then set it on the fire to boil. "This ointment," he said to the prince, "will heal your knight completely, but it must be applied exactly as I have told you. Do that, and your servant will be well again. But if you do not follow my instructions, I warn you the ointment will kill him." "I thank you, sir," said the prince, "and I promise I shall follow your directions exactly." And John gave him the pot and sent him on his way. The prince returned to his knights and told them of the ointment and how it must be applied. Then they all watched, breathless with anxiety, as he poured the water from the pot onto the wounded knight. "Look, good sir," cried the prince. "I have done as you said, but it seems to have no effect." "You fool!" roared John from behind them. "Did I not tell you exactly how this must be done? Did I not say to pour the water out?" "I beg your pardon, sir," said the prince, "but I thought you said to pour the water on." "On," said John. "I did indeed say that, and since you have disobeyed me, I must now curse you. Henceforth, whenever anyone calls you by your true name, you shall turn into a frog, and only by the kiss of a maiden can you be restored to human form. And until that maiden kisses you, you shall remain a frog. Come, see that this warning reaches your knights, lest they too suffer the same fate." "Alas," cried the prince, "I fear my knights will be warned in time, but what am I to do? I feel myself changing already." "There is no cure for you," said John, "save only the kiss of a maiden who has never loved." And so the prince rode sadly forth from the cottage, and sure enough, he felt himself turning into a frog, and he cried to his knights, "Beware my warning, for I have become a frog." Then he hopped into the bushes and hid himself away. And one day soon after, a hunter came wandering through the forest, and he saw the knights, and he asked them what had happened to their lord. And they told him how they had disobeyed John, the enchanter, and how their prince was now cursed to be a frog forever. "Why, I know a cure for that," said the hunter. "I have a daughter who has never loved, and she will gladly kiss you." And the knights were overjoyed to hear this, and they brought the hunter to the bush where the prince was hiding. "Here,"